Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Midday Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. I want to begin with a map here that's showing you the last 3 days of total accumulated precipitation. I want to talk about this map because I show it a lot. I want to make sure that we understand what we're looking at here. This is a radar-derived product, and if you look across parts of the Pacific Northwest specifically, we do often see that there are some pretty kind of sizable holes in this, and it makes you often think that there wasn't precipitation in certain places. But ultimately, this is a product of the radar system that is in place. So just take a glimpse there at what's going on across the west and northwest, and I want to show you this next map. You see, this is where our radars are currently placed around the United States. We have 160 of them, and if you look here specifically across the west coast, you can see the black dot showing you where each of the radars are, or there's often a star there. Now, the coverage that you see here in the coloring tells us where the radar is able to kind of penetrate through the sky to see things. And there are a few places where things are not so good in terms of coverage. Specifically, this part of Oregon, pretty poorly covered. Right in through here in this coastal region of Oregon, which gets some very, very heavy rains, you can see that even through this part of the Columbia Basin often misses out on the precipitation as well. And of course, up here in the mountains, we don't have very good coverage. Coming down through California, it's much better. But again, we still have the issues of where the radar hits up against the mountains, and therefore oftentimes that blocks or stops the beam, and we still miss some of that precipitation. So when you think about that previous image, that's what's going on here. Now, we have another product we often show you, which is this map, and this map is made by the AHPS, the Advanced Hydrologic Prediction Center, and what they are doing here is they are blending together the rain gauge network along with the radar. Now, we still have very spotty rain gauge coverage in parts of the west, especially where there's desert and not a lot of people live. So it's still a challenge in the western part of the United States to get very accurate rainfall statistics. But overall, if you look back over the last couple of weeks, we can see near average to above average precipitation, if you're north of that line. There's a couple of pockets over here where it's been dry in parts of eastern Oregon, and right here on the leeward side of the Cascades. But other than that, outside of the Snake River Valley, things have been relatively near average or wetter than average for the Northwest. Meanwhile, Southern California, as anticipated this time of year, is dry. So do we have any changes coming to this map? So this is the latest U.S. drought monitor that was released. We're paying very close attention to the drought that's here in the Central Plains right now, simply because if that drought does expand, it impacts the weather patterns for the whole of the United States as we progress into summer. So we need to watch that as well. But as we've been discussing, you know that overall it's pretty rare that we see much of an improvement in the drought situation once we get from May all the way through October in this region. So we do anticipate the map to not have too much change. Looking over the last week, though, we did see again the drought expand here and a couple of pockets of expanding drought in the west. That's where you just see the one-class degradation values right in through here. Now, why we start off with this discussion is because of what's looming out in the Pacific. So watch this animation. Ready? The system that you see going over the Northwest was overnight last night. We get a break for the beginning of the weekend. But then, as you can see, a very large low pressure system is sitting right in through here. And that particular system has the chance of slowing down, giving us multiple days of rainfall across the Pacific Northwest and getting down into parts of California. So we're going to have to watch this very, very carefully. So let's go ahead and look straight at the upper levels of the atmosphere and just play for you an animation of troughs and ridges. Now, what's quite interesting about this pattern is how amplified it becomes. That's where the troughs and ridges become quite high in amplitude, and what I mean by that is run more north-south. So as you watch that animation, I'm going to take you back right here. So this is Saturday morning. So you see here's where the trough is located, and it comes sweeping into the northwest. Now, I'm just going to play for it from Sunday all the way through Wednesday, and it's going to take 3 days for that system to get out, actually 4 days for it to get out of the west coast. And at that time, the atmosphere really goes into what we would call an omega pattern. You can almost see the Greek letter omega. See the ridge here? Now look, trough, big ridge in the middle part of the United States, and trough over the east. Normally, omega patterns tend to get blocked, which means they tend to stick around for at least 7 to 10 days, but this particular one will thankfully move through the flow and not get too trapped up in place for a while. But still, this is going to be bringing in some heavier rainfall for this time of year. So how much are we anticipating? Well, this is an animation starting this morning at 6 a.m. Central Time, so 4 a.m. West Coast time. And as we play this one forward, here comes the precipitation Saturday. See it here? Before that, just lightly scattered stuff, but there it is, Saturday into the day on Sunday. Now watch, here comes in Monday. We continue to add to this. Now into the day on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So you see that this is really going to be a setup that's going to be adding a lot of precipitation to the western part of the United States. And as you're going to see in some of the highest elevations of the Cascades, the Rockies, and the Sierra Nevada, we could be putting some more snow right there on the caps of those mountains. But overall, we are anticipating, especially along, the northern half of California, especially elevation dependent here, but the northern half of California, Oregon, coastal Oregon, and Washington, heavy rainfall. Of course, as we normally see right in here into the Columbia Basin, amounts are going to back off, and we'll truly be getting over a ½ inch of rain. That's always a difficult thing to forecast because of the mountain effects. In other words, that rain shadow is pretty dominant there. Let's just take a look again at the timing of this. So this is the operational European. Let's pause it right here. This is going to be Saturday afternoon, getting into the evening hours. That is when that deep low finally pushes its rain band in. And by the time we get into Sunday morning here, Sunday afternoon and evening, we see widespread showers all along Oregon, Washington, and into Northern California. From here, let's see how things progress into the morning hours on Monday. Now watch, at this time as the low comes on shore, we could be cold enough at the highest peaks here to be adding up some snow. And as we go from Monday midday to Monday evening, all the way into Tuesday morning, afternoon, and evening, we just continue to see the wet and unsettled weather in place. Now remember, it's at this point that that trough finally gets into Idaho and eventually into parts of Montana. And I just want to kind of give out a warning here for the Pacific Northwest. Middle and end of next week, I'm anticipating very windy conditions as this low wraps itself up into this area. So as the system exits, we're going to watch for some really strong winds. Where are we now? We're all the way out to next Thursday morning, afternoon, and evening. And at that particular time, we see that getting beyond this system, which again moves through about Wednesday of next week, things tend to dry out a little bit here as high pressure regains position and the trough moves into the Canadian prairies. So that seems to be how the systems are playing out here in the near term. And I'll just let this go on out to the end of its forecast time period. So it's the heaviest rain coming beginning at the middle of this weekend through the middle of next week. We got to watch most carefully. Week 2 only, so again, this takes us basically from the 22nd to the 29th. We are showing back up with near average to slightly drier than average conditions as the pattern again shifts. So it's not fully stuck or blocked at this point. So how about those temperatures? Let's take a look at our maximum temperatures today on Friday. It's cool, okay? Compared to normal, we're seeing upper 70s, lower 80s, and 60s along the coast like we expect in California. And just a slight cool bias to the northwest. Still pleasant. I mean, these temperatures are still nice. As we play this one forward, there's how things get on Saturday. But then as the front comes through, look, here's the cool down for Sunday. It's going to be warm in the interior, but cool along the coast Sunday into Monday. See the heat here? That's where the ridge is. The trough sweeping in cools things off. So Monday morning temperatures, these are all maximum, by the way. A lot of 60s and 70s in California. This is now Tuesday's max temperatures. Getting into Wednesday, you can tell by the color coding, this is much cooler than average as we let that trough work through. But it finally starts to pull out of here and get into the Canadian prairies by next Thursday, and we'll see the temperatures rebounding at that time and going back up to some warmer values. If we look out here just at days 6 through 10, we see that the effect of that cooler weather, still hanging on here. But once we get out to the time period of day 10 through 15, so this gets us out to the end of the month, we're back over toward our warmer bias across the western part of the United States. Okay, from there, I want to show you one last set of maps here. This is now the latest update. So we showed this on Tuesday. Here it is again on Friday. This is the May 25th through June 25th precipitation outlook. And in general, across the western United States, the models, are really not picking up on a strong bias either way, suggesting drier and through here and wetter along the coast during that time period, but no major deviations from normal that I think are, worth reporting or trying to understand at this point. I will say this, some of the longer term projections now are coming into the near term forecasts. This is what the lookout is for May 25th to June 25th temperatures. So we can see, remember, we've been anticipating with some of our long range models a warmer west coast for this summer, and this gets us out to the beginning of summer. Remember, summer begins on June 21st here, so we're seeing now the reflection of the warmer pattern in that area. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. We got a lot to be watching over the weekend with this pattern coming through. I'll report to you again on Monday morning. I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you then. Thank you.